I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cognomovement system. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Hello in UK Health Radio Land. I'm Liz Larson, and I'm here with my friend,
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna. And we just happen to be the duo that created the Cognomovement system. And speaking of the Cognomovement system, we have one of our amazing practitioners back, Katie Wrigley. Katie was with us before. And if you've been with us for a while, you might remember that Katie came on and told her amazing and fascinating story about how she changed the pain in her body and how she was able to get herself off of pain meds. So we want to welcome Katie. She's going to continue the story and let us know some more things that have happened, some things that are happening with clients, and what's really possible around this subject. This is a really important topic, don't you think, Bill?
I really do. I get grumpy on two things. Number one, if they don't give me any food. Number two, if I'm in pain, and when we're grumpy, right, because we're in pain, right, our attention, we don't have tolerance for others. It's hard for us to accept others and whatever they're doing. We misinterpret people's actions towards the negative. We have all kinds of ramifications when we're in pain. And our actions to others don't make sense.
So true.
I had IBS pretty much all my life, and I remember I was in my car and I was driving, and I was like, I'm sweating and I'm in severe pain. And I am about 1.5 miles from my house. And I'm like, oh no. And it hurt so bad. And I was going down one of the alleys, and I'm certainly driving too fast, but some woman starts screaming at me and trying to get in the way of the car. And I'm like honking, and she doesn't understand. I am in severe pain and all of this, right? So our actions don't make a lot of sense to others when we are in these extraordinary levels of pain. Not that's I've had extraordinary pain. One of the things that me and Katie have in common is skydiving accidents. And anyway, I think I got rods in my spine out of it. I don't know if Katie didn't get any rods, which fortunately we met prior to her getting surgery. So it's really exciting. One of the things for everybody out there in the audience is, one of the things we want to know about is, how did you find yourself in the position of being in such pain? And maybe realizations today that you have about that you just didn't realize before, of how did I get there? I think this could be truly valuable to everybody listening. So tell us.
So thank you. So first of all, thank you guys for inviting me back again. It's always awesome to spend time with you. I can't wait to see you live in San Diego next week. So through the course of my own journey, and now also as I'm working with clients who have had debilitating pain for decades, it just becomes clear how complex it is. It becomes more and more clear, and it's not one thing that did it. There can be one event that sparks a lot of these patterns, which is what happened in my case, but if I really want to break it down to one thing that really created the pain, it was a trauma from when I was a kid. And I found that again and again and again with my clients. We don't get that trauma out of the body, it's going to turn into pain. It kind of goes into the premise of Cognomovement, where the body is going to express for us the emotion that our mind is unable to. And there's layers, like there is with everything. But since, Liz had mentioned earlier as well, So since the last time you guys had me on here, I am back in the gym regularly. I can arch my back again for the first time in like 3 or 4 years. I can feel muscles in my legs again. And this was severe nerve damage. I was supposed to need neurosurgery to get my life back. Never had the surgery, thanks to Bill and Liz.
Wow.
But yeah, I can flex my leg right now and I feel muscle there. And it had been years since I was able to push my body. But it's teaching me so much more about pain. And I'm finding, there's something in common. There's a big link, and you guys have seen this as well. And I think you've talked about it a few times on here. There's a big correlation between trauma and pain, and they're very closely linked together. And one of the things that I've seen, and research also had backed this as well, is that being in pain itself is traumatic. So then you're in this trauma pain loop where the trauma that you've now rationalized, because we do that, we're like, oh, well, someone else had it worse, or at least I survived. Great. Gratitude is good, but feel everything, feel the victim, feel the fear, feel all the things in there. If you don't, it's going to stay in your body. But then you're feeling the pain, and then the pain itself starts to traumatize you because it starts to put your brain into a state of perpetual fight or flight, which is the same thing you see with people who have severe PTSD.
So this is so interesting, really. You're talking about a cycle that perpetuates itself. You have maybe an injury, and that injury may actually alert your body to something that happened in the past, compounding the injury. Then you have the re-injury of pain daily. And then I want to ask you about this next piece. The re-injury and the trauma that happens to everyone around you. So not just all these things you just talked about happening in your body, but in the life of the person who's having pain, and in the lives of the people who have to kind of deal with their pain too.
Yeah, it's really tricky, and I think last time we talked about we don't stay in any state unless we're getting something out of it. And that sounds so warped when you talk about pain, because no one consciously wants to hurt. I firmly believe that. But, if you look at the state of things the last 2 years, things have been more chaotic than any of us can ever remember. We've had periods where we were forced into isolation, which goes against our human nature. So you have people who have felt disconnected. And in my former life, like, I could have been standing next to you, Liz, and I would have felt lonely because I didn't know how to connect to people, because I was so afraid of what was inside me. I was in so much denial that I could not connect to the person next to me. And that's so prevalent. I've seen it over and over again. But now we've got everybody coming out of this 2-year period of high levels of fear, high levels of anxiety, high levels of disconnection. I haven't seen any stats on it yet, but I would imagine we're going to see a lot more chronic pain coming out of this, because one of the things that we get, zero judgment, just observation and curiosity, you get compassion from other people when you're in pain. I saw it on video on Instagram the other day. I don't remember who did it, but it was such a great way of looking at the umbrella. But it's like, it's right, because people are, how are you doing? How is your back? How is this? How is the IBS? How is the Crohn's? And they're engaging with you. And for someone, and especially if you have someone who's socially awkward or hiding or whatever reason they can't connect, now they've got something to talk about.
Wow. Wow. I know that a lot of people hearing that are not going to love that, but it's so true. Bill talks about this all the time. What are you getting out of it? And while it seems very offensive on the surface to talk about that, it is one of the most direct ways to healing. There's another piece.
Yes.
You get to opt out. Oh, I'm not feeling well today. I'm opting out of work. Oh, I'm in a lot of pain today. I'm opting out of that conversation I know you need to have with me. Oh, I'm in a lot of pain today. I'm opting out of, cleaning my house, making dinner. So there are reasons that people hold on to their pain, but I would say for the most part, it's not conscious.
None of it is.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
So those are all unconscious or subconscious patterns. No one I think, has any idea until they start to bring awareness. And this is the first place I start with my clients is you've got to start with awareness, because if you don't know what's going on in your body, you're not going to be able to address it. It's that simple. And so the first place it starts, and I learned this because when I did my first session with Bill and my back pain went away, I immediately had a panic attack. I was like, what is going on? And so I paced around my house and finally like, oh my gosh, pain is part of my identity. Like, and I freaked out and I looked at that and I had my out. That was part of it. And then the other piece was I actually felt a little superior to other people, which I'm not proud of saying, because it's like, oh, well, a 7 on the pain scale to you is like a 3 to me. Like, why was that something I bragged about? But it's like, you start to feel kind of like a badass that you are able to have some level of function in life and you're working through pain. So there's so much to it there, but none of these are conscious patterns. And so starts with awareness. And then and when I've had this conversation with people like, yeah, you're right. I am kind of proud of my pain level, and you're right, it is an out. And, but when the key is no judgment. If you're going to sit there and beat yourself up for it, you're going to make your pain worse, first of all. So please don't do that. But like you said, none of these are conscious. And then the next thing is like, okay, who are you going to be when you don't hurt anymore? How can you be just as interesting? Maybe you're going to be even more interesting because now you've conquered something that your doctor has probably led you to believe you can't conquer.
Ooh, did you just say that maybe you won't be as interesting, or you might be more interesting? That's something. I know Bill wants to jump in here. What were you going to add, Bill?
Oh, I just, it's so very interesting because I work with people that, find themselves in these odd situations. I'll tell you one story is a woman who was an amputee. She got amputated at the knee level. And the funniest thing was during the session, it came out that her father talked about these veterans coming back from war, and look at him. Look at these veterans. They're so brave, and they're so courageous, and they're so great. And look at him. He doesn't have a leg. Look at him walking around with the prosthesis. Look at how great he is. And so as a little child, being great is not having a leg, right? If you want to be really something, be one of those, right?
Wow.
And you don't even know. As a parent, you're just kind of like trying to, like, oh gosh, God bless America, and but what's happening for that child under the age of 7 is they're seeing, oh, that's something to strive for, and my dad would love me, and my dad would actually respect me. Why would he respect me? I still have 2 legs. Real respect is those people that got their leg blown off,
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
these type of things, or when you wonder why does this get programmed? Well, at a very early age, between 0 and 7, we're in this theta brainwave state, which is the same as hypnosis. We're just naturally in it. So we hear things, right? Well, oh, look at little Sally Sue. Oh, she's hurt. And then they see everybody go over to Sally Sue. Oh, Sally, what, you okay? You're right. Here, have some candy, Sally Sue. And so what happens is, love and appreciation and compassion for me is equal to my level of pain. Mm-hmm. So I need it. Right. And so here's the problem. The problem is that is established as a literal feeling in the body, like a quest, a desire, a yearning, a thirst for having something to point to, and you'll definitely make it real. I can't tell you how many people have just, right. And they don't really know why. Well, it just goes back to something very, very simple. We crave that. When that craving is eliminated, so too goes the need for pain.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing, you know, and I've heard stories similar. It's not someone I've done a session with, but she was told as a little girl, like, oh, you're such a good sleeper. You're such a good sleeper. Your brothers are such terrible sleepers. Winds up with narcolepsy in
Oh,
adulthood.
wow.
Goes to see a therapist, a therapist falls back like, oh, you were trained to sleep as a kid. Like your parents are going to love you if you're awake. Like, but you've got to get the subconscious to understand that, that's a pretty extreme example, but it's exactly like Bill is saying, I've heard that over and over again. Like when I worked with a vocal coach, our voice gets locked in between age 3 to 7, I think, or maybe 5 to 7 or something, but it's all in that early development phase. And when you have the trauma pattern running, you'll wind up like whatever area of your body may have been affected by the trauma, you may re-injure it again later in life. And that was my case, actually. My neck and back, skydiving was the obvious culprit. But even before I skydived, I had back pain. And I kept hurting my back over and over again. And I came to learn that area was part of where I was holding on to this trauma. And it was really far out concept for me at first. And it took me a couple of years to really get it. And now that I get it, it's much easier for me to help other people see this could potentially be going on with you. And once they can see it, that the progress they start making is just phenomenal.
So let's take our break. We need to hear from our sponsors at the UK Health Radio Network. So UK Health Radio, take it away. So we're back, and this conversation is so fascinating. The idea that sometimes or all the time or every time our body really will record injury, whether it's real or to other people would be a no thing, or something positive like the reinforcement of the woman who, veterans with one leg were venerated. I mean, that's a positive thing. It doesn't seem like a trauma or an injury, but the body and mind record it for future reference. And then the body utilizes everything that it's learned to then assess and deal with and function later on. So these things, while they might seem so far out there that you might want your pain to get love or to get compassion or to get a way out, that seems far out and crazy. But when you understand that it's just the body doing its job, keeping you safe, taking good care of you. If a body learns early on when you're sick, that's the way you get your mother's attention. I have someone like that. Then the body gets sick a lot.
Yep.
Right? If you and your family got a boo-boo and everybody cared, like maybe that's the only time your dad was interested, you're going to get a lot of boo-boos. Mm-hmm. It's really the body's way of taking care of you. And so, Katie, you've taken many of the things that you've learned, plus the Cognomovement system, and really developed a way for people to start to unwind these patterns if they choose to. If they've come to a point in their life where they're able to comprehend and understand, but also do the work. So will you kind of walk us through how does it work? And then maybe share a story so people can relate to how this might actually be possible.
Yes. So when a client signs on with me, 2 things. I ask them to give me 90 days. So I work with blocks of time. And what I'm finding more effective is to take the what I would consider a traditional Cognomovement session, a 90-minute session, and chop it into 3 sessions, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and break that up. So we're still getting the efficacy of 1 session per week, but we are not straining their neurology. So like I mentioned, when we get into that state of perpetual fight or flight, we want to be a little bit slower with how we approach the neurology, because we don't want to add any discomfort. And if we're shaking it up too much when the subconscious isn't sure yet that it's safe, then it may feel worse before it gets better. So why even make them feel worse? Just go right to feeling better.
So what we want to do is set this up. There's, we're getting people around the globe that this is a global show, and this is the first time they're listening to us, and they have no idea about what is cognomovement. What is that? What is it? How does it work? And then maybe if we set that up a little bit, it'll help people to understand what we're doing. And so I'll just give a quick little synopsis for people. What we're referring to with cognomovement is cognomovement, two words, cognitive, like your brain, and movement. So we have the person to focus on an issue. Let's say it's an emotional pain or a physical pain or something that they desire. And what happens is we do certain movements that we know are going to neurologically either stimulate a connection or prune a connection that is not useful. Stimulate useful, prune unuseful connections. And with this, the problem, right, the underlying state goes away, the stress or whatever it is goes away. And it's like, as I say, kind of an emotional amnesia, or you're teaching literally your neurological system to operate differently, to rewire. And with it, the most amazing things happen, like maybe you craved Coca-Cola and it's like, poof, now you don't care. Or your body function starts to come back online. So I just wanted to give that 2 cents, just so it gives some context to what you're saying. So go ahead and tell us about what happened.
Thank you for that, Bill. I sometimes forget that not everybody knows about Cognomovement yet, even though it's still a new modality. So yeah, I sit down with my clients. The first thing I want to understand is, where are they? How bad is their pain? What are they dealing with? How much is it interfering with life? I also want to see where they want to go. Where do you want to be in 6 months or 12 months? What would you like to do? And let go of disbelief. Like, just take, I just want to hear what you want to do with your life. So then I know where they are, where they want to go. Those are very important before I start working with someone. And then I ask for the 90 days for 2 reasons. One is chronic pain is complex, as we've already talked about. And in my experience, mood's going to go up, energy is going to go up before you start to notice the change in physical pain. And so even though you're starting to feel improvement from session 1, it takes about somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the level of pain, before you start to really notice it in day-to-day life. And there's a few reasons for that. One is our subconscious is there. As Liz has said, the whole job is to protect us and keep us alive. No big deal. It's a whole job. So it's not going to lower that pain, and pain is there to protect us. It's not there to punish us, even though it feels like punishment. It's there to protect us. So the subconscious isn't going to drop that pain message until it starts to trust you that you're not going to do something without the pain there. It also, we tend to notice things in front of us faster than we notice the absence of something. And I see this over and over again. Like, that was the key to my last career. I was email security. So my job was to show them what we had gotten out of their mail flow. So I'm good at showing people, hey, this is what's not there anymore. And part of that is really getting clear on the baseline. This is where you are as you start. And then you can see how much progress you've made. And you wind up looking like a completely different person as you do this. And also as we continue to improve, Bill, you made a great point of really helping me understand this piece too. We forget where we were. Like you said, it's the emotional amnesia. So unless we really categorize, document where we started, we're not going to realize how far we've gone. I think that's with everything, not just pain. But I ask people for that 90-day window. And I also, on the off chance that this may be the one person that this doesn't work for, I also offer them a money back guarantee. And no one has gotten their money back yet. No one's asked for it. Actually, I tend to have people come back to me again for another chunk of hours versus asking for money back, but it's a new modality. I want people to feel good coming into their session. And I also want to teach them to do this on their own so that they aren't relying on me for the rest of their life. Because I've been through it, it's also very easy for me to have a lot of compassion for my clients, because being in pain, it sucks. But when you can start to see your way out, start to feel hopeful. So the first step is to turn that hopeless feeling into hopeful. And a lot of times by the time I meet my clients, they've been gaslighted by the medical industry. They've had to prove over months or years that they even hurt. They've had pain pills shoved down their throat. They've had psychotropics, antidepressants, all that given to them, may or may not have explained why. But that's typically, and then we check in. So whatever they're feeling on any given day, that's what we do the sessions around, and I coach them in between as well. So we want to keep increasing awareness as we're getting rid of the physical sensation of pain. And it's been highly effective. So a client, I'm really excited with the work that we've been doing. So she's been diagnosed with fibromyalgia for 20 years, and it's been pretty severe. And she's actually been taking opiates for 20 years. And what's amazing is I don't see any actual signs of addiction. She is physically dependent, but that's different from addiction. Addiction has compulsion and you can't resist it. She can resist it. She's very, very structured. But since we started working together, and it was about 4 weeks after, she had also been taking an herbal supplement to help with pain. She hadn't had to take it for, I think, when we talked about it last week, she hadn't taken it for about a month. And then yesterday, when we had our session, she reported that she hadn't actually taken her second pain dose, med dose. So, and when we first started, she was terrified to get off of opiates. She was so afraid her pain was going to spike. And I'm like, well, we're going to get your physical condition to a place where you won't need the opiates. And we're also going to address your feelings about the opiates so that it is easier for you to withstand the withdrawal. And then when she's going to the withdrawal piece, we'll be able to deal with those symptoms in the moment and lower them very easily as we go. But she looks a completely different person. Her eyes are glowing, her skin's glowing. She has a big smile on her face. It's so awesome to watch the transformation with my clients.
So you said something, Katie, that was interesting. You said that you start to look like a different person, and you've experienced that. We can see you. For those of you who don't know Katie, she looks like a different human, and her life looks very different from when we first met her.
Oh, yes.
So would you share with everybody what that's like from the inside out? You were on pain meds when we first met you, and that was one of your goals, is to get off.
Yep.
Yeah.
I still took opiates on occasion. I can't remember the last time I took one. I was taking Lyrica daily, and I was taking muscle relaxers daily. I haven't taken Lyrica since August, and I haven't taken muscle relaxers in 3 months. And I had been taking those every day since 2014 because I don't tolerate NSAIDs or Tylenol. So if I get sore muscles, then I went to muscle relaxer, but I don't even need those anymore. I need a bath, or I may put a topical on if I, get a little twinge from gardening, but I mean, I'm out in my yard 6-8 hours a day.
Well, we know that you have changed physically because we can see it. But I want to share a story, if it's okay, from last time we saw you live in San Diego. It's been maybe almost a year ago.
Yes.
And you'd been working from November through that to July. And Katie said, hey, can you look at this spot in my back? And it was an indentation about the size of a thumb, just above the hips. And it was part of your injury, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so Katie said to me, can you or look at this indentation? And, I think you had thought maybe it was a little better. And I'm saying, Katie, I don't see what you're talking about. So eventually I ended up taking a picture so she could see that physical place in her body had changed. So we're not just talking about changing the mind and, getting over drug addiction mentally, and not addiction, a dependency on opioids and that kind of thing. And we're not just talking about, emotionally feeling better, but physically you were different.
Yes. Yeah, literally. And I regained 2/3 of an inch. So just for anybody who had missed it. So I have 6 bulging discs. My entire lumbar spine are all bulging discs, plus my sacrum, my L5 facet joint, which are the spiny things that feed peripheral nerves down throughout your body. That's gone. We assume I fractured it because I wasn't good at skydiving. But I was 5'5" and a third when I was measured. I started at 5'7" and a half.
Wow.
Got down to 5'5" and a third. So when we talk about damage to the back, it And I had more scoliosis that had gotten worse as well. And one in my neck too. I must forget what the injuries are at this point. And yeah, I regained 2/3 of an inch since starting Cognomovement. I'm in my late 40s. So I think some of the shrinkage is like normal at this point. It wasn't self-induced. And it's kind of like, wow, I didn't know I could grow in my 40s. That was kind of cool.
That's
That is
very
so great. Just a little side note for everybody that's listening. There's an interesting phenomenon that happens, and that is, Katie was saying, our body will express for us the emotion we can't process. And one of the ways that it does that is you literally, a muscle will tighten up on one side or somewhere, and it pulls on a vertebrae. And the language of the body is really interesting because, for example, if you have a lot of problems with your neck and stiffness in the neck, you might be somebody that has a lot of very strong feelings about other people doing the wrong thing. Like, you know what? I'm right, they're wrong, and I don't want to look at their perspective, right? And so with that, your neck will get stiff. And, and then down around the belly button area, if you've got problems, on your spine down there around that general area, you might have some problems with some people that are blood related to you. And that could be a, husband, wife, children, parent, brother, sister. So once those feelings go away, the muscles no longer tighten, and then voila, your height comes back. And also because there's no more strain there, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think you might feel a little better?
Yes.
So these are the kind of some basics there. You know what? I think we've run over. It's time for UK Health Radio. If you could take over and tell us something great.
And we're back. This is a great conversation, Bill. You and I were just talking about this yesterday. I think about how sometimes the body can be so literal. If you have a pain in the neck, maybe somebody in your life is a pain in the neck and you're unwilling to look at their perspective. So it's so fascinating. Tell us some more about that. Do you remember I don't know if you remember what we were talking about yesterday when we.
Oh my gosh.
So literal.
Your body is so literal. I had worked with one person. Actually, this is not one person. I've worked with a lot of people. And that, strangely enough, they come in with pain in their Achilles tendon and their heel. And guess what? They feel vulnerable. They feel like, oh my God, there's a little something out there that I could get attacked, and somebody's going to try to attack me. They're very powerful people, typically in powerful positions, but they have an Achilles heel, an Achilles tendon, right? And everybody knows it's so funny that there's these stories of Achilles and how he was killed through an arrow into the ankle. There's the identical stories in India, and I forget the name of it, but it was basically the same thing. Somebody got stuck a little pinprick right in the ankle, and the guy died. So anyway, our body and even these folklore, and everybody knew back in time. The question, right, you could begin to ask yourself, if you do have pain, is, what's here? Who's here? What is it? And Katie has really become an expert at all that, helping people to find out what's the underlying cause of this. It might not be what you think.
That's a funny one. In session, a lot of times it's just a tiny piece of something we do. If a pain in the body is resistant and wanting to hang on, we'll often have them put their hand on the spot that's painful and ask the question, what's here? Who's here? And it's interesting because immediately the hand on that part of the body, the acknowledgement of that part of the body loves being acknowledged, by the way, you guys. We often don't acknowledge our bodies, but when we do and the body feels noticed for the first time, it'll throw up right into the mind what it is. And the person will say, oh my God, it's my dad. Oh my God, it's my dog. Oh, it's the car breaking down. Instantly you get that answer. It's literally the body is so literal. I want to switch directions just for a moment. We want to make sure we have time. Katie's going to share one of the processes she uses if you are in pain and you're just considering getting off meds or just wanting to feel better. She's going to share that with you. But Katie, would you talk to us just a tiny bit about the kinds of pain? Because obviously an injury or what Bill was talking about, like the, having your leg cut off, a surgery, but there's other things too, right? Like you mentioned Crohn's, fibromyalgia. What are some of the other things?
So I've worked with a lot of joint pain. I've worked with a lot of digestive pain in myself and others. I don't really have too much digestive pain. I actually forgot I'd been diagnosed with IBS along the way too. I feel so much better now. I forget that there's this list of stuff. And it's, the one distinction I want to make, we can help with acute pain too, but acute pain is usually going to resolve itself pretty quickly. It's when it's still lingering, when it's supposed to feel better, that's when you want to start to take a look at it and start to connect to your body before it turns chronic. It has to be ongoing every day for 3 to 6 months before it's considered chronic. And one of the important things that I have found in my research is when someone is in chronic pain, they actually lose 11% of the gray matter in their brain, which is the equivalent of 10 to 20 years of aging. So there's no mistake that people feel older when they're in pain. They have lost that much of their brain, of someone of the equivalent age. But the beautiful thing is, by doing an exercise like Cognomovement, or even, for people who may not be that sold on it yet, meditation is going to do that as well. Cognomovement, I like to say, is like the fast forward, right? If you've got like 2 paths in the woods and you want to be able to reforest the other one and get the other path paved really quickly, meditation's going to, take years to regrow. It's still going to do it, but it's going to do it a lot slower. Cognomovement's like bulldozing the new path and super sprouting the old one so that you have that new path immediately. Like, that's the best analogy I can think of. It's like, we want a new path and boom, there it is right there. But we have the power to change our brains. And so one of the things I tell people, like, this is a way to change the mind through the body. Chronic pain already changed your brain, but this is great because you can change it back.
I didn't know that about the gray matter. That is such a really great point. What we did know, though, is that anything like that, like a pain that's getting all of your attention, is literally getting all of your energy.
Yes.
So in that state of chronic pain, or even acute in the moment, your body's in a state of fight or flight. You are not healing. You don't have energy going to your prefrontal cortex to think, to decide, to dream, to hope, to love. The body's not worried about any of that. It's worried about the lion that's on your butt, but it's actually inside your body.
Yes.
So that's so interesting. And it makes perfect sense that you actually start to lose brain power because you're losing horsepower. You're going down the road with 3 flat tires.
Yes.
And the engine's trying to work harder to get you to move forward. And, for some people that ends tragically. We know that chronic pain has a high suicide rate as well. So anything that can be done to provide relief, but also to provide that hopefulness, getting that energy back, raising the mood, raising focus, raising creativity, raising the sense of joy in life In
Yes.
chronic pain, joy is not non-existent.
Yes.
And the people in the life suffer. So it's just critical. I know in the US, this is a worldwide show, but in the US, there's a big push for people to get off of opioids, that we have an opioid crisis here. So the kinds of things that Katie provides and talks about, the kind of things that Cogno Movement can do are essential for people to know and be able to utilize. So Katie, would you take us through the process that you were going to share with everybody? One little thing they can do.
So one little thing that you can do, I advise my clients to do this on pain spikes, and I usually give them a video to just help them walk through, but you can do this even without a ball. So if you're having a pain flare or whatever is happening in your body, put your head down, actually look down at your body, put your hands on the place if you want to, you don't have to. Focus on that pain, describe it. And this is a trick that you guys had taught me too, and it's amazing. But you just get very descriptive. What does it feel like? Does it feel like it's moving? Does it feel like it's stagnant? Is it heavy or light? Is it dull or sharp? What other words would you use to describe it? Does it have a shape? Does it have a color? Does it leave a taste in your mouth? The more descriptive you get, the better. And you're keeping your eyes down this whole time you do it. And then as you're holding on to that feeling, you slowly start to move your eyes up until they're looking just about where the wall meets the ceiling. Then look down again one more time, connect back into whatever body part is hurting. And this works for stress and anxiety as well. It's anything you're feeling in your body you don't want to feel. Pause as long as you're not driving. Obviously do this if only in a safe place. Look down at your body again. Take a couple deep breaths, focus again on that pain. If anything has changed, note what changed. And then again, very slowly, let your eyes come up, and that should lower it. Like when I do that as actually as part of the virtual chats that I offer to get to know someone before I start working with them. And it'll knock down, if they started a 7, it'll knock it down to like a 5 in like 2 minutes. There's no medication, no nothing. And, and in weeks, you're feeling so much better that you forget to take your pain meds. It's just been incredible.
Yeah, that's an amazing one that anybody can do. Even if you're, having an emotional upset, you can use that one. And there's a couple of keys here. One is we usually try to push our discomfort away. With this, you're really digging in there and looking at it. You're describing it. You're getting curious about what that thing looks like. One of the language tools I like to use is get in there and camp in it. Like I said before, the body likes to be noticed. It likes to be acknowledged. And guess what, everyone? It starts to unwind the pattern, because normally our pattern is, well, we feel it. We try to get away from it. Maybe we take a pill. Maybe the pill makes us sick. Like there's a cyclical pattern we use. Whatever we can do to change that pattern, interrupt it, starts to rewire the system. And then the moving the eyes from low to high, it's the body's natural ability to move through sensation, emotion. You move from in the physical, describing, into neutrality, and up into ideas and inspiration. And as we were saying before, those things are often so lacking when you're in pain. So thanks for sharing that with everybody. That's a really great and easy process that anyone can use. Would you tell us, Katie, how can people reach you? How can people find you?
So they can find me on social and my website. I can also email me info@katiewrigley.com. It's KatieWrigley.com. Website is the same, katiewrigley.com. And then on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, I'm Coach KT Dubs. So it's COACHKT and then DUBS, I think.
And people can reach out for just a chat. If they think this might be the path for them, they can reach out for a chat.
Yes.
Yeah. So I encourage anyone who's really struggling with pain or is considering the option, it's just an option of getting off of their pain medication. Of course, I know we encourage people to do that in conjunction with their doctor, but most doctors are all for that one. Bill, before we close, what else do you have to add to this? I know that you've actually done this for yourself as well. What else do you want to add for people?
Well, what I would say is that as crazy as it sounds, that your body has some functions that you just might not be aware of. And you have a redundant set of nerves in your body. And when some part of your body is in pain, that with your natural ability to rewire, you can make a different connection in your physical brain. And it's fairly easy to do if you know how. It's basically done through movement and focus. Katie is really great at it, and I recommend just reaching out and spending a little bit of time with her so that you can do this naturally without the need of drugs that might be difficult on your liver and kidneys and that sort of thing. There's also, beyond the physical, there's all the emotional spectrum of horribles that you can do something about as well. So I hope to see you as part of the Cognomovement family, and moving to a whole new place in life like Katie did.
It's so true. I mean, Katie is just really such an example of being able to do this work for yourself. She had help, she had our help, but she did it for herself and for her body. And in closing, the last thing I want to say to everyone is that if you are in chronic pain, your family's in chronic pain, and so are your friends.
Mm-hmm.
This program, Cognomovement, can help them also to unwind the trauma, the pain, the fear that they might experience as well. Mm-hmm. So it really is a family or whole group systemic issue if one person has it. So I really would encourage you to take a look, reach out to Katie, come to cognomovement.com. There's lots of resources there for you. But I'm just so happy you're doing this work, Katie, and on the planet. So, all right, you guys, we've run up against the clock. Thanks for being here, Bill McKenna, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.